Hey, and welcome to the Heuristics Podcast. This is Kobe Ben Melech. This episode is about the brain, that mysterious organ inside our heads. Some very smart and resilient people out there are working on very interesting technology to help us gain a deeper understanding of the brain so that we can have better lives. I recently spoke with Yair Levy and Tomer Fekete, their respective CEO and Director of Science at brain.space, a company that's developed a kind of helmet to analyze the electrical signals that are constantly being fired away by parts of the brain. They hope that by having a better map of what generates our conscious world, we can navigate life in a more efficient and possibly happier manner. It's kind of nuts to think about the brain trying to understand itself empirically. But that's where we are at the moment. Here's my conversation with Yair and Tomer.
Hi, guys, and welcome. Thanks for coming here.
For having us.
And we are here to talk about this thing, the brain, and what we know about it, what we don't know about it, and what your company is doing to try to enhance our understanding of that chunk of flesh that God knows what it's up to, in very practical ways for the future, right? But I think before we go dive into the abyss, why don't we start simple with some intros? I mean, I know a little bit about you guys, but who are you guys? What's your background? What is brain space, and what are you guys doing over there?
Sure. So my name is Yair Levy. I'm a co-founder and CEO of BrainSpace. And my background is engineering. I love engineering. I love products.
What kind of engineering?
I'm an electric engineer.
Okay.
And I used to work a lot with electronics and make electronics accessible for people. And in my background, I worked in the defense industry for 6 years, and then 11 years I've developed locks.
Locks?
Locks, actually digital locks.
What does that mean, a digital lock?
Digital locks means that instead of using the normal mechanical key, you enter a house using your fingerprint, or your phone or remote.
How widespread is that around the world?
Well, before we started working on those digital locks, it wasn't so common for residential. You mainly met that in the entrance to your workplace and to other institutional facilities. But the revolution happened, I think that 10 years ago, when we started working on residential locks. And that was part of the change that I made in my career. I came from a very technical engineering point, and I figured out I met the people that using technology and make it accessible for people. And that's one of my first steps to revolutionize myself and changing myself from a technical guy to, let's say, a product product person.
Yeah. So you had enough of sitting in the lab, and you actually wanted to see how people interact with the mad things that you're developing.
I think the beauty was to spread myself between the lab and the technical people and the technology, and get to know the people that are using the technology, and to better define technology to fit people.
Was that an insult at Tomer? You had enough of his type? Is that?
I cannot insult Tomer. Tomer is a different sphere, a different ecosystem. But I think that Tomer represent people, and I think that today the third change of my life was to start working with people to meet the targets, meet the vision, explain the vision to the different attitude, the different point of view.
Yeah.
And that is the third change I did in my life. Starting in technology, then moving to product and people, and then moving to people that arrange in a group, which today we call a company.
Yeah,
and
today.
And the last, let's say the last mile will be to connect the brains into the people and technology.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned executing a vision. I'm actually very, very curious to hear what it is, the vision that you guys are developing for your company. But so you're the CEO of brain.space. Is it brain.space or brain.space?
It's a brain.space.
Brain.space. Okay. And what is brain.space? And then we'll get to you.
It's actually to represent the vision of the company. We are a data company. We're dealing with brain data company. We're dealing with brain data. And the vision of the company is to actually make brain data accessible for everybody. It means that there are a lot of technology today that in the past weren't accessible for anyone. Think about the phone.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a child, the people that used phone was the one that had very important business.
Right.
And today, every child has a phone and can access technology and can leverage this technology to many amazing stuff that they are doing.
Right.
Either gaming or navigating or even sharing some pictures in their life.
Yeah.
And we would like brain data to be a tool, to be a technology that will be accessible for everyone.
Okay.
And make innovation based on insights, brain insights we provide from this brain data.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot in there, but before we go, Tomer, who are you and what are you doing at brain.space?
I'm a neuroscientist. I've been a neuroscientist for over 20 years now. What I do at brain.space is oversee the neuroscientific activity of the company and oversee the algorithmics developed in the company because they're not general purpose but pertain to the brain. And that's essentially what I did all my career, which is try to understand.
Move the mic a little bit closer to you. Yeah.
Which is try to understand what the brain is doing, but through playing with data and thinking about data as the keyhole through which you want to glimpse at the mysteries here.
And we didn't talk yet about the device itself, like what the company is built around. Why don't you guys explain what that is?
Sure. Can I?
Sure.
So when we face the challenge of providing data for everybody, we actually started with what is existing in the market. And when you look at the ecosystem of brain monitoring, or let's say the brain data acquisition devices or tools, you see there is a big burden, there is a big challenge here. And most of the tools that already exist are aimed for medical use. So if you're looking at the, let's say, MRI and CT, those are not accessible devices. It's not something that you, Kobe, can use at your home in order to monitor your brain condition.
Just explain for anyone listening. Why not? What?
Well, first and most, those are very expensive devices. MRI costs a few $1 million. CT, same. CT is a bit dangerous to use when you're not an expert, and it has a radiation. CT scans, of course, it's limited. You can use it in very limited condition.
And again, just so I understand, what do these devices do?
So they scan the brain.
For what purpose?
So mostly for medical. If you have a tumor, you probably will go for a CT scan, and then afterwards the medical facility will run an MRI scan to see the tumor in your head. But when you would like to have, a simple cognitive assessment, you will probably not be able or will not want to use those devices. There are a few portable devices, but they suffer from, or they lack the simplicity of use and the reliability of gathered data. You can either use EEG devices which are wet, means that you actually stick electrodes to your scalp, and
as you do every morning, right?
As you do every morning, paste some gel beneath it. And well, if you look at me and you, it's probably going to be a doable task. But look at Tomer's head and his long hair that we are quite jealous of. But it's a very challenging task to do, and to apply that in a variety of demographic and a variety of population, it's quite hard. There are a few devices that utilize dry electrodes.
But so you guys developed essentially what's looks like a helmet, right?
Exactly. So what we did, what we understood, is that there are no existing tools that can help us to break this wall, break this challenge of accumulating data.
Mm-hmm.
And we have invented a technology that is based on existing system, on existing the EEG technology, which measure let's say when every neuron fires, it creates an electric field around it. And EEG technology measure that field, and then you know which area of your brain are active, and in a way, you know what kind of activity you can relate to the human behavior. And we took this technology and we upgrade that using several engineering and algorithm improvement. And we put this EEG technology into...
Just to add to what
Yes.
Yair explained, okay? So you asked, what's the problem with MRI?
Yeah.
For MRI, it's not only very expensive, but you need a facility, a dedicated building, and technicians who studied at the PhD level to operate it, meaning it's very, very expensive and not attainable, okay? So what you would want is something that A, you could pay for, and B, wouldn't rely on expertise, right? Now, current EEG systems do rely on expertise. You need somebody with many years of experience to operate them, okay? And our vision was of a helmet that basically places itself on your head. A clinical EEG system requires a technician to work for half an hour to place about 20 electrodes on your head. This helmet, in 3 minutes, places itself on the electrodes, attach themselves.
Not
to your
literally
scalp.
places. Oh, you actually have to put the thing on your head.
You just have to place it near your head, and then the electrodes, your head will be scanned by the helmet, and the electrodes will extend based on the morphology of your scalp.
Okay. Wait, let me just actually put a pin on this for a second, because I think we need to back up, right? And I think with a more fundamental topic, which is, I mean, we all have brains, but I don't think any of us understand what the hell is going on over there. So what is the brain? And I think this is more your area of expertise.
Okay, so one of the reasons we haven't been able to understand the brain all that much is that we haven't been asking the right questions. The common paradigm is to wonder about which parts of the brain are active in a given situation. The problem with that it's not very informative. Why is that? Well, for example, so activity per se of the brain is not in itself indicative of anything. Why do we know that? What's the difference in energy consumption between an awake and sleeping brain?
No idea.
Take a guess. So about 20%. Okay.
More when it's awake than
more than awake. Okay, but and the flip side would be, if activity is so important, if we look at the case in which the brain is most active, you would think it would be doing its best job. Well, actually, the case in which it's most active is an epileptic seizure, where it's essentially doing nothing. Like the most extreme case of seizures is absence seizures, where basically you disappear until the seizure is over. So the question should be not what the brain is, if the brain is active, but what is the right kind of activity, okay? So if you want to conceptualize that, what is activity? You want to think about dynamics, okay? And then the question becomes, what are different dynamics? How can we describe them? What kind of dynamics are conducive for, say, being able to concentrate better, and so on and so forth, okay? And a good place to start to think this way is, again, to go back and look at wakefulness versus sleep, or anesthesia versus wakefulness.
Wait, but before you go there, I mean, just answer the basic question. What does it do? I mean, what is this thing that's inside of our skull?
So let's say for over half a century now, the common wisdom is that the brain is a information processing machine. This started in the 50s, when people understood that the basic cells, the electrically active cells of the brain, the neurons, are reminiscent in some ways of transistors inside a digital computer. Okay, why is that? Because neurons do what's called spiking. Their voltage, their metach.
Voltage.
Yeah. No?
Potential.
Their potential essentially spikes and then resets back to the baseline. So on the face of it, it seems like an all or none event. So two neuroscientists called McCulloch and Pitts suggested in a seminal paper that was called something like the logical calculus of the mind, that's what neurons are doing, essentially computing logical operations. Okay.
How exactly? So I walk into a room. I'm sitting with the three of you. It's cold. I mean, I feel a little bit of air conditioning. I'm looking at you. Your hair is far longer than mine. You're wearing glasses. Like what? How does this exactly get computed from the world into my brain or our brains?
Okay. So to answer that, let's continue a little bit with that history. Okay. So people exactly framed the question that way. Okay. So basically, the common paradigm in visual processing was to look at feature processing, and then to understand how features are combined together, and to build larger and larger and more complex objects.
Feature is like your nose.
So no, a feature would be first like difference between light and shadow. That would be like boundaries in a picture. And then you start building lines, and then you start building shapes, and you connect shapes to textures, and so on and so forth. But let's go with that. Okay, let's try and imagine that you had a machine that was doing that. Basically, what the machine would do would be to copy the external world inside your head, right?
Yep.
Well, think about it. What did we achieve if we actually did that? We would need a little man inside the head who would find himself in a reconstructed visual world and start the process from scratch, okay? So the modern way of thinking about this is that our basic unit of perception and thinking is scenes, okay? Or processes, or a thing called schemas, and so on and so forth, okay? So it's basically what was called at the beginning of the century gestalts, right?
Okay.
So it's getting the big picture first. And
what does that mean, the big picture?
Right. So when I come into a room, okay, I don't just freeze and gawk and build up a representation of a room, which would probably take me a few minutes, and I'd make many mistakes, and in between the room would look fuzzy. You know, I come into a room and I seamlessly perceive it, okay? I want to stress this point. I don't actually perceive the room. I have the feeling that I perceive the room, right? When we try to gauge what's actually going under the hood, we find out that we see much less than we think. We have the feeling that we saw the room, But in fact, we only see details when we're queried. Okay?
Queried by ourselves, by someone else.
By task demands, if you want. If you ask me a question, if a challenge presents itself.
So, like, again, just to ground this right now in the here and now, I'm in a room. I have no idea what's going on in the back of my head.
Right.
There's a computer, there's some screens, there's a wall.
Right.
But if I turn around, there it is, and I don't really have to think too much about it.
Exactly. And also, I mean, there's a phenomenon that really exemplifies this is called change blindness. Okay? So a very famous experiment was done on receptionists. Okay? So somebody comes to the receptionist and is supposed to fill a form. Now, the task of the receptionist is to focus on the form, getting all the right details. And in this experiment, there are actually two people. They duck underneath the desk, and the other one stands up. Okay?
Okay.
How many switches would it take for the receptionist to even notice this? You'd be surprised. Actually, quite a few. Okay? Because this is the thing. Our attention is a bottleneck, and it's serial, and our working memory has capacity. So therefore, we focus on a task, and we see what's relevant to our task. You can take it to political, analogies. You see basically what reinforces your beliefs. Okay, so what does this mean on a more abstract level?
Yeah.
Okay, it means that basically we don't see reality. We generate it based on what we called generative models. These are kind of statistical machines, okay, which are very natural to realize in neural networks. And basically, this allows us to do a lot of great things. One, predict stuff, right? Because if we go back to the picture, okay, picking out all these minute details from around me and trying to build a big picture, right? Once I finish, everything important has already happened. I need to see that the lion is rushing and know to climb a tree or duck or do whatever. Something starts flying towards me. I need to know if I should duck or try to catch it or whatever. And it would depend on the situation, right? If we would speak purely in terms of reflexes, right? If a ball is coming towards me and I'm a baseball player, I have to catch it, not duck, right? A normal person would see that ball flying. I hope you would duck. Otherwise, it would end in the hospital, okay? So, and another great example would be, say, you met somebody online and you feel like you're falling in love and you're having all these discussions and now you want to meet together, right? And let's make it into like a cliche movie. You're waiting on a train platform, right? You're waiting for her and, you see her coming and you're like, oh. And then she gets closer and you see it's somebody else. Right? You just saw her picture online. You never saw, so what's happening, right? So classically, people would grapple with these kinds of scenarios and say, there's some sort of illusion involved, implying that there's a mistake here.
That's the kind of thought that's actually rolling around in my head when you're saying that we generate perception and then.
So the idea is, right, that the percepts that we generate, are supposed to serve our needs. Okay? Expectations are exactly that. They're serving our needs. So you're waiting. So on the fly, you have to construct sort of like this classifier that's supposed to help you zoom in on this important event to you in space and time. Okay? You don't have the cognitive wherewithal to process everything going around you. Okay? So it's part of mental economy. So heuristics that saves you time,
Right.
saves you energy,
Right.
but it's also prone to mistakes.
Like we perceive the world in a very, 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 very thin funnel, right? There's infinite amount of stuff happening right now in the universe, and but the three of us are just engaged in this conversation.
Not
in a
only
room.
that, but the incoming information could be represented in various different ways. We choose to represent it this way because through evolution, we were pruned to look for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
And there are a lot of very nice so-called visual illusions that demonstrate that. Basically, the bottom line, without going into details, is, we live in a planet where light comes from above, right? And visual stimuli can be ambiguous. So our interpretation would be one that supports the natural shading conditions we are used to, namely the sun shining from above.
When we spoke a couple months ago, you mentioned something about dead people informing our perception.
Dead people informing our perception. So
Tell me about the
It's very unintuitive to us to think that ideas could be passed through genes or something like that, right? But actually, it shouldn't be that strange to us. Why do we think it's possible? For example, there's this experiment where they take classical conditioning, right? Like Pavlov's dogs. They want to condition a response of an animal to a stimulus. And they take apes that have, grown in captivity, meaning they've never been exposed to anything but cages, people, and other apes, right? And they show them guns, images of guns, and they pair them like with a mild electric shock.
Okay.
And they compare that to the conditioning they can reach, the level of aversion they can reach with images of snakes paired with a noxious stimulus. Now, right, if ideas were just, something we develop and there's no ideas that we can inherit from our forebears, there wouldn't be any difference between the two classes of stimuli, right?
Mm.
But actually, snakes are much more aversive. Why is that? Because somehow within our visual system, memories about things that are relevant for apes growing in the wild are encoded.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay? Now, it actually isn't. It's the most natural thing in the world. Because what did we say? We say that the input flowing into our receptors is very ambiguous. And our only way to make sense of it in an adaptive manner on the fly is using predictive models.
Right.
Predictive generative statistical models. Now, these models...
Is that just another word for instinct? Like, as you said,
No,
the ball?
not at all. Not
Okay.
at all. Well...
Like, in other words, you said a ball is flying at you at a high velocity, and our instinct is to duck or move away or jump out of the way.
Sure, but
and that's just based on memory of
but
God knows how long of an object flying in your direction, and some person
Right.
didn't realize it, got hit in the face, and that hurts, and then that got passed on over quite a long period of time.
Right.
And now it's instantaneous.
It's instantaneous, and in technical terms, that can be referred to as our priors. In this case, the ape's prior was that snakes are more dangerous than
Right.
pieces of metals.
Mm-hmm.
Of metal. Okay, so, and all this can be viewed in a framework of Bayesian inference. Okay,
What's that?
what does that mean? It means that we have these priors, and we take incoming evidence, and it depends, and we weigh the two, and the stronger our prior is, we'll listen to it. The more we'll listen to it, and the stronger the evidence becomes, we'll start listening to it. Okay?
Mm.
So going back to the train platform, I was expecting to see my love. Therefore, my prior was shaping the incoming information and making it more and more likely. At some point, the incongruency was so large that, it snapped, right? But I didn't get a blue screen, Even that change was seamless. It was very smooth, okay? So we have to understand this. What our system does, its default mode of operation is generating smooth and seamless unfolding experiences,
Right.
which are populated by agents and objects and scenes and space and time, all of which are constructs, okay?
Meaning none of us have actual purchase on reality.
I don't know what reality is,
Sorry.
okay? But
Flimsy question.
You went too far.
it's just we have to accept that our reality is by and large virtual, okay? And not try to impose our values on reality. And another thing impeding the neurosciences is exactly that.
But hang on a second. I mean, again, some of the very basic things that we don't even think about, right? For example, the ball flying in your face, in the direction of your face. That I'm assuming we developed that for adaptive reasons, right? Like, ow, that's gonna hurt, and so, but that is coming in direct contact with reality, right? Or snakes, right? The apes saying that very linear creature that's slithering on the floor is not good for me. It's going to bite me and with maybe a poisonous bite and kill me. I mean, so.
Sure. I mean, the reason our models are shaped through experience and through what our fathers passed to us is because they're effective. If they weren't, it wouldn't happen. Okay? And that's also our basic conception of machine learning.
Yeah.
Right? You have a scheme that enables you to learn, but ultimately, if it's not good, it's not going to work. You're going to try a different machine. Right?
How far back do we know that the way that we perceive the world right now? How far back do we go that? Based on how long ago those experiences are informed. So in other words, like, is it just our ape ancestors? I mean, does this stretch back to the beginning of time? Like, how much of consciousness is wrapped up into the I'm staring at the ball and this thing is coming at my way? And I mean, is this a process that's been going on for billions of years, a couple 100,000 years? I mean, what?
So
maybe that's a bad example, but you understand.
Yeah, the idea is basically that you have like 3 different brains. You have like a reptile brain that's your core brain, and the top level like mammal brain, and your basic emotional interface is that lizard brain, more or less, right?
Okay.
And
we have 2 lizard brains. Oh, sorry, lizard, reptile, and mammal. Sorry.
Just getting more and more complex.
And what we think is like the main thing that makes our cognition stand out is the neocortex, which is a relatively speaking new development. I lost my.
How far back does this process of informing our how would you call it?
What, in terms of years, or?
I have no idea. I mean, if you want to go years, sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the numbers, but tens of thousands of years. I'm not sure that's the interesting point. But again, the interesting point is that because our brain is an evolved organ, right? It's not optimal.
Right.
Okay? It's not it hasn't actually developed to be optimal in machine learning kind of sense, but, this fish became a lizard that became, and so on and so forth. And just like we have the appendix, we still have organelles in our brain which represent that. And actually, the idea is that our higher brain kind of tries to override them, but a lot of time, say our fight, flight, freeze reaction is rooted really in these very basic animal-like structures. Okay.
So it's this organ, this that has evolved over, say, millions, maybe billions of years. I have no idea, right? That you're trying to map, right? Is that?
It's a good example of how backward compatibility is implicating the advance of, in the how technology is moving forward.
Go on.
So I think that trying to summarize the amazing story that Tomer was putting forward. By the way, it's the first time I heard it. Amazing. I think it's a very good example of how complexity is one of the biggest challenge that we are facing now.
But so it's main task of the brain is information processing. Yes, is that?
It's what I said. It's generating expectations. Okay, producing a coherent world around you, which enables you to act, choose, decide, and do all these things.
Now,
and
coherent is an interesting word because, you know, a lot of, if not all of the world is an illusion, right? Like we don't actually have names, we don't actually have jobs.
Sure.
Right. I mean, there are things that are rooted in
and you
natural.
don't actually have a shape.
Oh, I don't have a shape.
Right.
What do you mean?
Because your shape would look different if I would see it from a different angle. Right?
So when I step on the scale this morning and it says, 70 kilograms, that's incorrect? Or did I misunderstand what you meant there?
Depends on which planet you're standing from.
True.
But I think let's try to.
Yeah. I'm trying to get back to you guys. Is that?
Yeah. So eventually,
how do you make this into?
Okay, so the idea is, again, you have to understand what it is that the brain is doing.
Yeah.
Dynamics, right? And understand that some dynamics are meaningless, like under anesthesia or very deep sleep or a seizure, right? So what we want to understand is how to measure when dynamics is better or worse.
Okay.
In other words, we want to build a map of brain states, okay? So sleep or alertness are a brain state, okay? So to build that map and for that map to be useful, it has to be complete, right? So for example, if you were navigating with a map and suddenly part of it was missing, right? That would be a problem for you.
Yeah.
But second of all, a map also has to give you a handle as to where you want to go.
Okay.
You might know, I want to get to this point, but you have to find the right path, right? So that's what we're trying to do, to map these different states of the brain, but also have the idea where we want to go if we want to get to a different point. So, for example, if somebody has suffered a stroke, right?
Okay.
And their brain functionality has deteriorated, right? So we would want to rehabilitate that brain, right? So we say,
you could tell that their brain has deteriorated in what behavior? What kind of behavior would you say, okay, this person's brain isn't working optimally?
That's the thing. We would measure the dynamics of the brain, and there would be features pertaining to the spatiotemporal organization of the brain activity that would tell us that this brain is not as it should be.
So you wouldn't even be able to see it in the behavior?
It would be a statistical fingerprint, a dynamic fingerprint that tells you something very important about the spatial temporal organization of the brain's activity.
Okay.
Okay? Why spatial temporal? Because the brain is divided into networks, okay? And organelles, and then organs, and then hemispheres. Meaning there's a hierarchy of anatomical structure or network structure, okay? If you want to measure what the brain is doing, you want to measure along and across these different levels, okay?
And you would measure that by the amount the neurons that are working or they're passing electricity.
We measure the electric field that
right.
the neuron are generating.
And that's when you know which part of the brain is the most
Exactly.
active.
But
okay.
Let me try to connect the parts.
Yeah, bring it to the real world.
Exactly. So if we try to consume the story about how the brain was evolved and looking at people, so what we're doing today in the industry, we're trying to actually read what people will do, what people will feel, what people will know. And we're basing today on all kinds of statistical assumptions. But if we heard from Tomer how complex is the decision making of a person. Think about the story about you're going to meet your blind date, and you full with also all kind of expectations, and then your imagination is blowing from million years ago when you tried to hunt this rabbit, and now you are trying to meet your next lover.
I hope we weren't doing that with rabbits.
Exactly. But eventually, when you base those decisions on statistical assumption with such a complex behavior, the story not always went so well. And we know that. And if we look in the industries, there are a lot of mistakes, a lot of assumptions that end up with the wrong products, the wrong services. We miss customers, we miss the users' behavior and will. And eventually, we are using a lot of wrong tools to analyze and understand what the users need and want. We're trying to get their feedback, to interview them.
Mm-hmm.
But, as Tomer said, it's not your shape. It's only what you perceive as your shape.
Right.
And when you interview someone, you will probably get what he conceived. This is the right answer. And even if you do some statistical A/B testing, you don't know in which condition this person was when he chose A or chose B.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, it's still a guessing game.
Meaning if I'm a company, I'm developing a product, the feedback that I get isn't clean.
It's definitely not clean,
Okay.
and it's more a guessing game than a real answer
Right.
for the question that I would like to ask.
Okay.
So eventually we are in like a process of trial and error, and we're going out to market, get feedback. We guess that this is the right answer. Sometimes we do succeed guessing and get a good product, but eventually the statistic even tell that most cases you will be wrong one after the other, and only at the end, after you fine-tune the way, you will get the right product. And playing this guessing tool is probably the wrong way. Because and now I connect the dots. When you map the brain, when you have a very clear map, think about that. At the 16th century, when they navigate, they look for India, and they find the new India, which is the U.S. today, or maybe the Caribbean. But eventually, when you don't have the map, you don't know what you look for. So you better go for statistics. But if you have the map, why go statistics? Why go east and west and try to find India? We know where India is located because we have the map of the brain. And this is the way how we can, instead of using these guessing tools, this guessing game that every company is doing today, we can know exactly what our users want, and we get to the source. We get to the brain.
So
we solve this question. We solve this.
What are you doing right now to develop the what do you call it? Is it a helmet? I mean, what?
So again, it's very important to understand we are not a hardware company. Of course, we developed this amazing headset with amazing technologies. either the technology that actually align all the electrodes to the scalp, and the algorithm that's doing data standardization in a very automated way, that eventually will help us to easily access brain data in big numbers. And this is the game that we are playing now.
Mm-hmm.
We are accumulating brain data, and in order to have this big data of variety of people, variety of demographics, in a variety of variety of scenarios. Think about the scenarios that Tomer put forward before, explaining you about the brain. And there is a lot of complexity that we need to solve, and we do that by using this amazing headset that provide us with very coherent, very repeatable, and reliable brain data. And we don't need to have a facility for that. Just put the headset on your head and start measuring, start recording data points, recording brain data. Eventually, these data points will provide us with sustainable brain data that will give you and other companies that will use this data brain insights.
So how are you testing the device at the moment?
So the amazing thing that happened in the company is not just a high-tech company. It's a company that involves science, involves people, because eventually we deal with brain data and we don't have artificial brain yet. And probably with the complexity that Tomer just explained us, probably it's take some decades till we have an artificial brain. So we actually run experiments or tests in our labs and with customers. We already have some customers that are using our products.
Who is that?
Some customers are from the academic institutes.
Like medical research?
It's more like a behavioral research.
Okay.
Lucky for us, we're in the age that people understood that statistics is not enough. And people understood that the brain is not a computer. It's much more complex and require more data and more reliable data. And this is how we get to the academic institute, providing them a tool that they never had before. A tool that can really accelerate data science.
And to what use are they using your device to study what?
Maybe I'll let the scientists
So it lends itself to several very natural use cases. One would be, say somebody is studying something through a simulator, okay? So we just latch onto that. Or somebody is working with VR. We doing research with VR. We latch onto that.
Research on what, though?
If it's in the context of a lab, how you perceive motion or, make decisions on the fly and so on and so forth. So the paradigm for researching something like that would be to understand, okay, I'm trying to research this, think of an experiment, and then run it while measuring brain activity. So basically we're saying, okay, you're a research, you have a theoretical question you're interested in. You don't need to hire students to collect the data and process it and wait years. Here, take our stuff, and one technician can do the work of, 10 very good students and very good technicians, right?
Whereas
Just
before
like
they were using MRIs and CAT scans?
Or even if they're using MEG or EEG, still they would need to have, for somebody to be good enough to collect viable EEG, he needs at least months of experience or not, or more. It takes, about half or 2/3 of the time just to put on the equipment and clean it afterwards. And then even worse, he would have to start processing the data. That takes students months and months and months to learn. And by the time they're starting to get a little bit good, they wrap up their master or their PhD and they're off to another lab. And that's it for you. Okay. So our platform encapsulates expertise. Okay. In the sense of placing the helmet on the EEG, set on the head in terms of pre-processing the data, which is very important, analyzing it, deriving features from it, doing everything, okay? So basically, it's like in the future, people will be able to be like movie directors just sitting next to the portal, whatever it will be, right? Same thing here. You can be this amazing...
Wait, what? What do you mean?
So you'll have, your virtual characters will be so good, right, that you could just write a script and some software will generate it into something that's look-alike.
Okay. I suppose that's the podcast is more or less like, it's kind of in that vein, right? Like, I'm not a TV producer, but here I am. I'm putting on a show and I can put on YouTube quite easily. So I guess I shouldn't be laughing so hard about
that. So that would be like the next 3 phases of that,
right?
So we're saying same thing here. For somebody who wants to understand the brain, you just need to have the right concept. All the technical stuff from the data collection, its processing, the machine learning, everything we provide, and it will be so easy that, you just have to have the good ideas and you'll be able to do it. Okay. So that's very appealing for people working in academia. Okay. It's also very appealing for companies or institutions, as I said, that work with simulators, right? Why do they use the simulators to begin with? Say, for example, a rail company in Europe is trying to understand whether somebody is fit to serve as a train driver. Okay. So they put them in a simulator, and they see, how he behaves driving a virtual train, right? Can they tell that his performance was because he's bad at it, because his boyfriend dumped him the night before, because he has a substance abuse problem? They don't know anything. All they can see are the matrix pertaining to how he moves the joystick, right? And we're saying, okay, we are going to close that gap. We'll let you know what actually is going behind the curtains, underneath the hood, whatever metaphor you like. What, is he, distraught? Is he sleepy? Is he bored? Okay. So we'll be able to provide you with that information, which is the point Yair was making, right? So any behavioral method of trying to gauge what a person is undergoing is very limited. It can only be complete if you go full circle and see what the brain is doing.
Right, because if you query that person applying for the rail conducting job, and he says, "Well, why did you score so low?" He said, "Well, I was tired," but in reality, his boyfriend dumped him the night before.
Right,
but he doesn't want to say that.
And the horrible thing about questions is that when a person says it was okay, what does he mean? For some people, saying okay is like high praise. If you were born in Germany in the beginning of the 20th century and you say something is okay, it's like, wow. I had teachers in university who would, give back a paper and grade it, and you would get like an A-, and they say, oh, that was a very good paper, and the grade reflects it. Because in their mind, giving somebody an A- is like, an exceptional student. Whereas a younger guy working in a college today, if he doesn't give somebody an A+, the parents who shelled out like 60,000 a year are going to text him like, what the hell are you doing to my kid? Right? So if you ask somebody, was it good or was it okay? You have to be able to interpret that, right? How are you able to do that? So there are some statistical techniques to do that, but ultimately, to even try, you would have to ask him a lot of questions and ask the same question again and so on, and it becomes a procedure. We're saying, no, it can be something that can be done within minutes and give much more definitive and viable answers.
So just to linger on this example of the conductor, you map this person's brain, and he or she says, some data comes out about the brain states that this person was under while they took the test.
Right.
Exactly.
Is that measuring their cognitive abilities? I mean, what? Sorry, go on.
So, yes and no. Okay. The problem is that we're not interested. Your descriptors for somebody's cognitive state or capacity reflect the way you describe yourself to yourself and to other people. We're interested in actual brain native terms that are actually good at predicting behavior and describing behavior, unlike our terms, which, when we try to explain to ourselves why we act the way we act or why somebody else acts the way we act, we go to therapy, we cry a lot, we watch movies, we eat a pint of ice cream. Not so good, okay? So the answer would be machine learning. You would get vectors, say, with probabilities pertaining to different states of the brain that you can be in, and the user in a given application could use that to predict whatever he wants. So, for example,
I'll give an example.
But
a simple one.
But still,
so in the case of this driver's competence,
Mhm.
right? So you wouldn't get a descriptor saying he's like this, he's like that, he's like that. It would say, okay, he's apt, he isn't, and maybe he needs training, right? It would be connecting what's important to you as the consumer here. You want to know either if he's not fit or if he's good,
precisely.
or if he needs a little bit of training, and then which kind of training he needs. And moreover, what kind of schedule should the training proceed by?
Yeah.
What kind of, and so on.
Precisely, because it's the company that cares at the end of the day whether this person is fit for the job or not. And
Right.
the way they measure that is, can this person deliver the service that its own clients want, which are the people that ride the train.
Sure. We provide them with the tools to build the measurements that they need. Think about this as, again, the best example is navigation and maps. We provide the maps, we provide them the navigation tools. They define what are the A to B that they would like to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So in that perspective, they can either just measure the competence of the driver in the exact moment, or they can build a use case that they would like to better train in a long time. The maps, the information that we provide, the insight, the brain insight we provide, they can help them build the application around our platform.
Right. And, I'm just thinking about this now, there are obvious use cases that come to mind, like, for example, a military, right? They would really want to know, okay, we've drafted a soldier. Is this person able to make it? Right.
Very intuitive. Hey,
Can they fly a plane? Are they better at a helicopter?
I'll give you another example.
But essentially the market is potentially endless, right?
The market is endless.
Right.
And I could give you a few examples of the revolution that happened with data and I give you some examples of things that we are on the edge to start them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about paper maps. That's clear. People use maps. I navigated with maps in the past when I came to Europe. Now we all use Google Waze and things like that. Changed the whole way. I don't think that people buy maps today. Libraries, well, I like reading books. You want to fill the paper. You want to turn the pages, and then
I'm the same.
My wife starts with the end, and then she starts reading. But today, younger people, they're using Chrome, Safari, Bing. Those are the tools that they're looking for knowledge. Advertising, we used to, they open the paper. Again, papers, things of the past, but we open the paper and see some advertisement for shoes, for things like that. Today, everybody is publishing things on Facebook, Taboola, Google AdWords, whatever.
Right.
So those are revolutions that started with data. And we are changing guessing tools with brain insights. And I give you a very interesting example of something that we are just on the edge of starting. Think about athletes on the mental states.
Athletes.
Yeah. And, elite athletes has like months and sometimes years of practice before a very special event that they have. A lot of stress during this period. And in the exact moment they need to be fixed. And you ask about what's the role of the brain. So we all say that the center of the person is the heart. No, the center of the person is the brain. Because it's not only about avoiding ball that is coming to you. It's all about getting focused, very in high attention and ready for the challenge. And looking at those athletes, the difference between the one that takes the first place and the last place is usually not physical capabilities.
Right.
It's mental. And one amazing tool that we are on the edge of starting the development is a mental meter for athletes that will help the coach to fine-tune the training and even know before the critical event what is the mental state of the athletes.
Oh, wow.
And think about that, how many mistakes we can solve by knowing the condition of the athletes before the event, focus them on the target, recap all the mental strengths into one critical point.
Wow.
And avoiding mistakes that can cost them the career. So
that's wild.
Again, the point here is to provide the tools. The use case will come from the market. And as the good example of simulators that, again, they know the business. They can define the needs. They can define the points on the map. We would like to get from A to B. With our platform, they will get there in the most efficient way. In, let's say, one line, straight line to the point, because they know they have brain data. They have something which is not statistically assumptions. It's real data.
And another similar example, but like in terms of, say, lifestyle, right? So one of the major problems as adults that we grapple with, or as people, is managing our stress, right? We do a whole lot of things to do that. Counseling, consuming drugs, taking antidepressants, and meditating, okay? But basically, in abstract, what are we trying to do here? What's meditation? What's the end goal of meditation? Attaining a brain state, okay? So imagine that instead of groping and listening to other people trying to describe their experience and what they did, there's this very famous experiment done by B.F. Skinner, the famous psychologist.
The guy with the rats, right?
With pigeons, actually.
Oh, pigeons. He taught them how to, was it follow missiles? Is that what it was?
No. He did a lot of examples, but in this case, he just watched them behaving and reinforced weird behavior.
Right. He's
and
the guy
then
who
he caused them to do these idiosyncratic dances or patterns, and he claimed, that this is basically proof of the biological basis for religion. Like the world reinforced weird behavior, and then it became a ritual. Okay, so meditating can be a little bit like that, because somebody attained success with meditation, and then he's thinking, what did I do to get to that point? But a lot of what he did can be completely random or just misattributed because we're not very good at understanding ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So here we'd say, okay, let's look at what brain state meditation attains and help you reach that as quickly and as painlessly and as seamlessly as possible. Okay? So this is what we're trying to do is applicable to all spheres of life, from the daily and personal to medicine, societal, you name it, right? Because essentially, as people, what we try to do is attain brain states. It's hard for us to admit that, these things we run after all day, tail, money, status, ultimately it attains a brain state. It's kind of it can be a lonely realization, but I think that it's very inspiring, because it means that heaven is not something that depends on a deity or something metaphysical or some law and order. It depends on our ability to make the most of our brains.
I'm tempted to go down that rabbit hole with you, but
Kobe?
yeah, sure.
The helmet is down there. Would you like to ask?
Yeah, bring it here. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Here, grab a key. Sorry, just for everyone to know that Yair is going to go downstairs and get the helmet. I'm going to try it on. All right, well, let's just wait.
To make a point that I made before, and I made it poorly. When I say that we don't see reality, I wanted to give a very concrete example. So here's one. These drawings that you can see either as an old or young woman?
Okay, I don't know, but...
Okay, so Google old young woman.
All right, keep talking.
So basically, you can look at that and...
it's actually the first thing on Google search, young woman illusion.
Right. So if I would say this is a picture of an old woman, most likely you would see it as an old woman. If I would say this is a young woman, most likely you would see it as a young woman.
She looks like a young woman to me all the way through.
So look to the other side. Like the chin is actually the nose.
No, I date her.
Okay, so this is the mouth of the old woman. This is her chin. These are her two eyes. That's her black hair, and that's like
what? Hair?
A scarf.
Okay.
No, a scarf.
Okay.
Okay, and for the young woman, this is like a necklace. This is her nose, her eyelids. So basically, or you know what a Necker cube is?
No.
Right, Necker cube? Necker cube.
No.
So basically, it's a 3D outline of a cube.
Okay.
And people can look at it, and if you'll stare at it long enough, it will shift spontaneously between either extending from the paper or extending from the paper, right? Now, what's happening here? The same with or duck rabbit. Okay, this is a very famous example, I think, given by Wittgenstein in his writings. You can see it either as a duck or as a rabbit. And yet, it's the same configuration. So it's the same lines.
Mm.
The shape is something you impose on the lines. Okay? Another example, you have a face area. If it undergoes a lesion, you don't see faces anymore. You see all the features, but they don't gel into being a face.
If let's say my face was all mashed up, you wouldn't see a face anymore.
No, you would see a face, but you wouldn't recognize it as somebody's face. All faces would seem similar to you, even though you could see all the details, right?
Mm.
So the identity of the face is something we impose on the stimulus, so to speak.
Right. Okay. So they have to sort of fit what our expectation of a face looks like. Otherwise, it's like, what the hell is that thing?
It just means that for us, it's very important to see people as having different faces and to be very attuned to the difference in the way faces look. Okay? So because of that, we build up this very intricate machinery to enable us to do that. Okay? But the world is ambiguous, and we latch on to information to serve our purposes and needs.
Wait. So we've got the headset here. Is this? Are we able to turn this on?
Sure.
All right. So shall we? You guys want to go into the wild world that is my head for a second? Can you guys can still hear me, right? Okay. Oh man! Wow. Wait, this goes on my chin.
No,
That's a neck support.
for the neck support.
Neck support.
Right. So if this were connected, right, at this point, the sensors
I like that you guys have a strap, as if I'm going to go riding my bike on this thing or something. Yeah.
would extend to your head, and data recording would start. Right? As simple as that. I mean, think about, you would maybe be looking at the computer screen and see a rendition of your face, and it would help you, to slightly move it left or right until it's perfectly aligned.
Okay.
But still, boom, it would be recording.
So is the vision? Here's what I want to ask you.
But by the way, not the vision. Even now.
No, I meant the vision for the company is, you're gonna have every home in the world will have one of these babies on, and I can put it on before I have an argument with my wife.
So this is the beauty of machine learning.
Yeah.
Okay. Once we have the database, it's not necessarily to have a helmet in every home. For a given application, we can scan your brain once, and we're good to go. And it will be as simple as that. It might be that you'll go, you'll have a printer at home. It will print a personally configured helmet just for you, and it will scan you.
Wow. So I can actually 3D print this thing at some point in the future in my own house.
So think about this. Think about this as the Android system. Eventually, Google doesn't need to produce phones in order to people to use their platform. Same here. We provide data standardization. We provide a standard for uploading brain data into a cloud in order to better analyze it and better understand how the mind works, how you can analyze it using machine learning tools like Tomer explains.
But you still need this in order to upload the data into a cloud and to be analyzed.
You still need to upload brain data, and in the future, of course, as Thomas said, we will have models that will predict even without this kind of brain monitoring. Okay. Eventually, the brain is being projected outside of ourselves. Eventually, the brain is projected to our focus, our eyes, our heart rate, a lot of sensory information is being presented out of our brain. But for the time being, we have to have those brain inside this brain data.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, in the future, we will be able to predict it on other indicators, other information. Nevertheless,
he's saying no.
No, but you need to hear that. Nevertheless, the point here is that we provide a data standardization to upload brainwaves, upload brain data. And by saying that, same as Google did with the Android, we will put forward the standard. You can provide any hardware that you would like, and as long as you will stand in the criteria that we provide for how to organize data and upload that, we're okay to go.
Okay.
So you don't have to, in the future, you will not have to wear that specific type of headset. You can use any other that will stand the standard, and we will be able to analyze your brain data. So I'll take you not too far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably use one of the goggles those VR goggles from Oculus, Vive, and any other producer.
Yeah.
You already have something on your head.
Right.
Why not add a few sensors that will also measure the brain activity?
Okay.
You're a driver. You talked about defense. In the defense arena, a lot of helmet users.
Right.
Why don't add some sensors and we will provide you with more data? You're a bicycle rider. Me too, I love it. Why not add some sensors and provide more data to our system? And then we can provide you with beneficials,
Wow,
information to better train yourself, to live better, to be more focused, more relaxed.
Yeah. It's interesting to note how prevalent the use of helmets already is. Like we're constantly putting things on our heads, I mean, to protect it. But now this is actually
think about it
analyze
as
it and
wearables.
map it.
Think about this as wearables. This is a new age of wearables.
Yeah.
And also think about like the future. So maybe we'll be able to scan your brain like with wireless electricity, right? So you'll be scanned 24/7.
Now you're really starting to freak me out, man.
But
What?
And also,
What do you mean? You wire like what? What?
But a more realistic example is basically if we were to have like a few thousand little robots crawl inside your head, that would be the perfect.
Dude, you're not making it any better here.
That would be the perfect interface. Why is that? Because basically, you just think about it. If you take an antidepressant now, right? You're basically taking a sledgehammer and affecting your entire brain.
Okay.
Whereas you would want to pinpoint what is getting administered, where and when, and how much, and all these things, and change it on the fly according to your need. Maybe you need a bigger dose at this moment. Maybe when you're sleeping, you don't, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay? So there will be some sort of technology to bridge the gap, which will enable to do that. How exactly will it look? Will it be things in your head, or will it be like a swimming cap that does that? Will it be something around your ear? I don't know. But still, our framework, it will be part of our framework.
I'm taking you back to the story about the phone.
Yeah.
If you will recall, at the beginning of the cellular phone, it was like a luggage and
a receiver.
Right.
And nowadays there are phones that sits in babies' hands. So eventually this evolution will come to this brain technology, and it could be either EEG or MEG or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't care as long as the data is standardized according to our standardization.
So, I mean, we spent a lot of time so far talking about how useful and practical this kind of technology can be for us. Have you guys given thought to how this can go wrong? Like,
yeah, of course. I mean,
I think for example, like as we were talking, like what if I put this thing on it and it mapped my brain and it, I set it to analyze my ability to be a podcast host, right? And let's say you've gathered enough data and it turns out I'm like, I don't know, in the 30th percentile globally or something like this. Like, data is data. It's empirical. Like, there's just no way around it. And that would just be crushing, I guess, for someone like me. And what if we need our illusions, right? Like, for example, the adage that hard work trumps talent, for example. But if I get something like this, it's like, well, I'm really passionate about this. I love spending my time doing this, but here I am. I'm turns out I'm really, really bad at this. That might spell the end of my joyride here with the whole podcasting adventure. So
I'll take this.
Yeah.
So I have two answers for you.
Yeah.
First is not exactly answering your question, but it's very important to understand. The data that we collect is anonymous. We we care about you, but we don't care about the person that is uploading the data. We mostly interested in the demographic, let's say, span of the person and the data which is related to the scenario that this person is viewing or hearing or doing in the current moment. And it's important to emphasize. It's an anonymous information, so we don't have any privacy matters here. But answering your point, well, sometimes technology sucks. You know, yeah, seriously. You know, technology give leverage to some people and provide barriers for some. But what if you have a talent, but you don't have the tools to bring it out?
Yeah.
So we provide the tools to make you better. And we provide talented people with more tools to become much better and to stand up and provide what they want to do in a better way and in faster trail, you know, in this straight trail from A to B. So I truly understand. It's real. Sometimes reality sucks, but reality will take people faster to the point.
But like you wouldn't, let's say if you put this on and all of a sudden you found out, I'm making up an example, right? But on the CEO scale, you're in the 5th percentile globally. Like that would be terrible for you. Be like, you know, I love what I'm doing. Right? I presume you love what you're doing and you're really happy and this keeps you going every day. You wouldn't want to see that, right? It saps your motivation.
Nevertheless, maybe I will figure out that maybe I need to be a pilot, which is a dream that I've neglected in the past, or maybe to be a farmer. And maybe I will find my peace in a different way that will make me better in what I'm doing. So, and again, this is a big promise to the society, because eventually there's a lot of people that are being frustrated doing something that they're not fit to. You know, that when I was a young manager, my CEO told me that for every person, there is one rank which is too high. And again, it's taking us back to the suggestion, to the guessing tool. Again, we are guessing too much. We need to know. We need to have answer and straight answers, because guessing make us wrong. And those mistakes cost us sometimes in a very pricey and big pains. So I get your point, and it's true. Sometimes reality hurts. Sometimes it changes your dream, but it provides you, the tool that we give can provide you with new dreams and new opportunities.
Interesting.
Another way
I mean, the way
say it
my fear is that like we would be severing ourselves from our destiny, but you're saying, well, perhaps you're not looking at your destiny in the most optimal way.
We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And here we provide tools to know.
So we want to help you to be your best self. Okay? Now, perhaps it might be the case that for you to be your best self, you have to shed some misconceptions about yourself and what's good for you. Okay? So this is giving you the ultimate sandbox to try and take the reins to your destiny. Okay? With great power comes great responsibility. So that's true for us as a company.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to choose very carefully the partners we'll work with, and we're not going to give our hands to like shenanigans and evil sort of stuff. But anyways, you know, the onus becomes and was always and stays with you as an individual to choose your path in the best way. Right? And if you'll try to do the wrong things, you'll fail. Our platform is not going to change that. It's just going to help you to make decisions that are better for yourself. And, you know, you can decide you want to be a painter, even though you're not great at it, and still be very happy painting.
Shitty work.
Yeah, but what's the point? Impressing people, having a legacy, or drawing this immense satisfaction from the process? I would say the latter, right? And I think, it's a lesson for all of us to actually embrace what we are, what we can do, what we can be, and the world as it actually is, to the extent there's reality and not, our fantasy.
So I want to use the time that we have left to kind of dwell on just this last point a bit. So I want to discuss something this is a book called The Denial of Death. I don't know if you've ever read it. Have you? No. So it's an amazing book written by Ernest Becker. And the central thesis of the book is that our entire civilizations, everything, right, it's just one grand illusion to distract ourselves from the horrifying and inevitable fact that we're all going to die, right? So, we're born, we become, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. We learn, okay, I'm going to die. My parents everyone's going to die, right? We come to this fact. And, we could spend the rest of our lives thinking about this, or we can just come up with other stories. And these stories allow us to, they allow us to have journeys that are sort of heroic, the way he frames it. The heroic journeys in the face of this inevitability, right? So we try to make the best of it, and here are the tools that we gave ourselves to do that. And anyway, so towards the end of the book, he says the following: how do we know that our part of the meaning of the universe might not be a rhythm in sorrow? Manipulative, utopian science, by deadening human sensitivity, would also deprive men of the heroic in their urge to victory. And we know that in some very important way, this falsifies our struggle by emptying us, by preventing us from incorporating the maximum of experience. It means the end of the distinctively human, or even we must say the distinctively organismic. In the mysterious way in which life is given to us in evolution on this planet, it pushes in the direction of its own expansion. We don't understand it simply because we don't know the purpose of creation. We only feel life straining in ourselves and see it thrashing others about as they devour each other. Life seeks to expand in an unknown direction for unknown reasons. Not even psychology should meddle with this sacrosanct vitality, concluded Rank. Otto Rank is this disciple of Freud, and Ernest Becker, the author of this book, is very enamored with his ideas. This is the meaning of his option for the, quote, irrational as the basis for life. The irrational. It is an option based on empirical experience. There is a driving force behind a mystery that we cannot understand, and it includes more than reason alone. The urge to cosmic heroism, then, is sacred and mysterious, and not to be neatly ordered and rationalized by science and secularism. Science, after all, is a credo that has attempted to absorb into itself and to deny the fear of life and death. And it is only one more competitor in the spectrum of roles for cosmic heroics. Now, I love that passage because I think, especially for your project, it encapsulates both the beautiful and the potentially dangerous, right? Which is, on the one hand, so long as we're mortal, right, we're always going to have problems, right? We're always going to privilege one group of people over everyone else, right? We don't have that much. We're finite beings. I'm going to die. If I don't like you, I'm going to spend as little time as possible with you, and I'm going to spend more time with you here. Or vice versa. It doesn't really matter, right? And that has consequences, right? I'm going to treat you worse, and I'm going to treat you better, and then all hell breaks loose after that. And so there are always going to be problems. And these kinds of technologies, as they're so grand, right? Mapping the brain and, understanding ourselves better, like it lends itself to a kind of utopian thinking in a way, right? Because it's like, if only we can understand this brain, this organ, and who knows what kind of amazing things will come out of this, and then we'll fix all of our problems. And so we have to be kind of careful as to where we take this. Yet on the other hand, like, I can't think of hardly other things to spend the limited time we have on alive other than to doing something like your project and making sure that people are better suited to the things that they're doing with and how they're spending their time. And as you said, achieving brain states that are what we want at the end of the day. So, what do you think of my little rant just now?
So it's really a question as to your perspective on human potential. Okay. So the safest thing would be to make us all the same. No big suffering, no horrible suffering, no great pleasures, no elation, and what have you. Okay. Now, what can I say? If you just, sorry, me being me, I'm going to think in terms of a distribution. Okay. Everybody knows a little Gaussian, right? So it has two things: where the mean is, where the average is,
Yeah.
and how wide it's dispersed.
Yeah.
So us as a society, we would want to move the mean right, for sure. Like the average potential of every brain on the planet, we would want to make it more.
Definitely.
Now, the question about the width of the distribution, that becomes a little bit tricky because I would say I want it to be very wide. You know, I'm going to bite the bullet and suffer the left hand for the unique geniuses, right? But that's something that society is going to have to, understand, regulate, and choose. I could, as an engineer, try to say, fuck that left side. We'll engineer it so mainly the right side will be expressed. And as an engineer, I'm open to that idea. But as a person, I was also, reared on the milk of the idea that you need to suffer to, spread your wings and do something really grand. So it's kind of hard for me to give up on that left-hand tail. But, like everything else, engineering is blind without goals that we as a society, philosophers, artists, crystallize for us. As engineers, once we're given a task, we can solve it in an optimal way. But we always will need that guidance of, our human stars.
So, perfect. Okay, that's very constructive, because I want to get to your motivation right behind this. Now, there's another idea that's kind of, he hints at it a little bit, Becker there, that it's an idea that Nietzsche developed in his book Beyond Good and Evil. I think in the section called Prejudice of Philosophers. So, the great philosophers of history, they all set out with the claim that they're out after objective truth for the betterment of our species, right? And Nietzsche essentially calls all that into question. And he does that in two grounds. A, that there is no such thing as objective truth. It is only perspectives. I happen to disagree with that, but we'll put that aside for a second. And the second part, which is the most devastating, I think, critique, is that we're all motivated by something, right? Like, human beings are just vessels for drives, impulses, instincts, whatever you want to call it, right? And so, for example...
Not just, also.
Right. Excuse me. Yes, you're right. And so it could be anything, right? Hunger, sex, fear, love, joy, sadness. You want to fart, whatever, right?
And beauty.
And beauty, yes, all these things. And they're all inside of you, and they're all competing with one another to manifest themselves in the real world. Now, what's so fascinating about it is that, of course, he takes it one step further, right? It's like, it's not just me, it's also you, it's everyone, right? And so reality is is precisely that. It's this competition or negotiation between whatever will has manifested itself from among us in some kind of cooperative or even competitive game. That's reality. And now that's between conscious beings like ourselves, and it's also with us and inanimate objects, for example. So, right now I want to put the helmet on, and the helmet just wants to sit on the table or just rest, say. But I put it on and I win. My will win, right? That's what he meant by will to power. And so taking that back to the philosophers, right? He picks on Spinoza and Schopenhauer, whatever. He calls bullshit on them and saying, your philosophy, the development of your ideas and the way you look at the world is a manifestation of all of these little things that are going on in your mind, right? So it could be these people were after fame, or they really want to show how smart they were, or I don't know, they were masking some weakness in their character, right? It isn't some pursuit of objective truth, actually, right? It's some ploy to mask what's actually going on, really. And it's such a brilliant insight because that affects all of us, right? In everything that we do. And I open that question to you guys. Like, let me volunteer just for the sake of honesty, right? Like, why did I bring this up right now? This question. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to show you how smart I am, and I read a book, right? As desperate as that sounds.
Probably one of it.
yeah, it's one of it,
Part
right?
of it.
Another is I want to grip the listener's attention. I've seen the data on Spotify, and I've seen how quickly people just lose interest, and they go away, and I want to grip them. I want to hang on to them for as much as I can, right? So trying in ways to keep their attention. But as I was thinking about this question last night, I am actually genuinely interested, because what if this becomes our new reality, right? The helmets, or however else, and we're mapping the brain. And you guys take off and you're super successful. Your answer to this question is documented there, and that actually might be of great utility to know what was motivating your project. I mean, you said you went from being an engineer and then moving more towards developing the product and being closer to the market. So anyway, yeah.
So, well, actually, before I started studying, I tried to live, support myself through menial labor and do meditation and whatever. And I was really frustrated by the thing I had mentioned before. Like, somebody writes his recipe, and the recipe seems like complete bullshit. And moreover, you watch these documentaries on Netflix and see what these gurus who supposedly attained higher states actually do. That's not very inspiring, right? Unless, you're a GTA kind of guy.
GTA?
Right? Grand Theft Auto.
What do you mean? These people?
Like Osho or all these gurus who end up, having sex with countless of their disciples and making millions of dollars and, having 80 fancy cars.
Well, there you go. I mean, that question of motivation is very, very relevant to what their little project over there.
I realized that the only way for people like me, and I think in this regard I represent most people, is that we need somebody who can show us the way, something, and give us handles to actually regulate our states of being. Okay? Not drugs, not medicine, not these dodgy gurus, but actually something that will help us, work with ourselves and face our demons and grow and overcome challenges and failure and success and all these things which are so hard for us. Okay? So after 2 semesters of philosophy and psychology, it hit me. The answer is the brain. And ever since then, what I've been trying to do is to understand how to conceptualize this idea of brain states. Okay? Both help us understand ourselves better, but just as importantly, to actually help us build things that will enable us to work with them. Okay? And, basically the most important part of us, our brain, is a complete black box to us. We can't really access it directly. Okay? So why don't, help your brain become an ally? Bring him and you together in a loop where you listen to one another and try to do better.
What about you? Yeah.
Right, it's hard to add something on.
Well, no, but you had a
Amazing
different
summary.
journey in life. Right?
Sure, but I think the point here is knowledge and personalization. That along the history, societies tried to gain knowledge by using the mass crowd. And in the 16th century, it was the church that dictated the knowledge. Then afterward, philosophy tried to mimic the knowledge for everybody and try to explain everybody how we think, feel. And you gave a very good example from Nietzsche that, this how your internal feelings hits reality, and sometimes your internal feelings win, sometimes reality wins, because I could put my hand on the headset and you will not get it because I'm stronger. So I think that the tools we provide are definite knowledge, and if we look ahead, the ability to personalize knowledge is the strongest tool that we provide, because eventually, and it's very Tomer emphasized that very well. He tried to personalize the knowledge that he gained, and again, with a guessing tool of his own. He tried to do this, and it didn't fit it. And then he moved to a different area and tried to simulate his way in order to know more about himself, what fits him best. And again, this guessing tool need to stop. And I think that when given our mission in stake, I think that in the near future, brain insight will be the knowledge. It's a superior tool that will help everybody to better understand themselves, to develop better products, develop better services, and provide much better personalization for everyone to become what they want based on real knowledge and not on assumptions. And those who will continue using those assumptions will be left behind, trying to guess and fail again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess with that, there's so many implications there that we would need, I think, another 2 hours to unpack. But let's just end with this. I wish you guys, sincerely, I wish you guys success in the broadest sense, right? Not just financially, but really that technology like this doesn't, because you never know, right? You flip the on switch and then all sorts of discoveries and experiment. I mean, who knows what kind of consequences these have? So really, in the broadest sense, I do wish you guys success. And anyway, yeah, I hope to speak to you guys soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
It
you
was
very
great.
much for having us.